Right, so good welcome. Yes. Is everyone happy to be here? Yes? Good? Okay. So I'm Kate Bulkley. I'm a business journalist. I'm independent, so I'm here basically to moderate, to keep the energy up, to get you guys to ask questions, yeah? We're going to hopefully have some stimulating conversations and panels, so help me out with putting up your hand if you have a question, all right, when we get to that part. Why don't I bring you guys up, and we'll start right off. This panel is an interesting one because this one is about, the name is Alexa. How will you change our industry, Alexa? How many people have a home speaker? Yeah? Not that many. Nobody in the back has a home speaker? Come on. Siri, Cortana, nothing. All right, fine. So we're talking about how voice is starting to get into the business in a big way, how this might change things, what kind of technology this means for broadcasting, for both the creative part of how you produce things, how you distribute it, how you find it. That's really interesting. IoT is obviously part of this. How's that all going to change the entertainment business? Basically, what I look at as a journalist is I look at, we've got smart voice recognition, we've got data-fueled algorithms, we've got recommendation engines. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming at us that's changing how we discover, consume content. So, are we going to be having Siri or Alexa find our programs for us? Well, it's already happening in the UK. If anyone has seen the Sky Q box, you talk to your box. You don't actually use a remote control anymore. Will they be tracking our emotions and moods and serving us content and advertising based on how we're feeling? Well, it's already happening. We've got someone on the panel today. We'll talk a little bit about what's happening with Myriad, which is a technology that works on that. Will content be produced just in time for individual audiences? This whole idea of personalization, that's something that's really a trend that's coming. I think that we're going to see more of that. We'll talk a little bit about that. And what does that do to the idea of sort of a national broadcaster or a national conversation, or what we used to call the water cooler moments? In other words, people that are watching the same thing at the same time. We have some pioneers at the forefront of some of these technologies, and we're going to talk about that. They each have a little bit of a presentation. We're going to talk a little bit in between each presentation, and then we're going to come to you with some Q&A, all right? So hopefully we'll surface some interesting stuff. So just to introduce my panel here, and I'm for some reason way out here, so I can't see you. There you are. Hello, Pete.
Hi.
So I have three guys here. I have Pete Thompson. He's sitting right next to me. Pete Thompson is Vice President of Alexa Voice Services. He's based in San Francisco, so he's come all the way from California for this. Thank you very much, Pete.
You bet.
Prior to Amazon, he joined Amazon about a year ago, wasn't it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, he worked across a number of well-known products, which I'm sure you are familiar with, including TiVo. He worked at Sonos. He worked at Microsoft Media Room TV division. I remember Media Room well. He created a new division for T-Mobile, which was called T-Mobile Hotspot. He's also served on various boards, including EW Scripts and Sigma Designs. So that's Pete, and what he's involved with is enabling device makers to integrate Alexa into their products. In other words, bringing it into all kinds of devices, from smart TVs to, I don't know, we'll hear.
Cars, everything.
Cars,
yep.
Everything. Next to him, we have Phil McLaughlin. He is the chief scientist at Myriad. Myriad is an interesting company, which you're going to hear more about. Phil has worked in computer vision, image processing, pattern recognition. In 2000, he co-founded Imagineer Systems. A lot of you may know this. He was the lead developer on Mocha, the visual effects software. How many people know what Mocha is? Yeah, okay, so we have a couple of hands. His work is focused on products and applications derived from understanding of perception of motion, shape, and recognition. Since 2007, he's been the leader of both the design and the engineering aspects of Myriad, the video technology solution that enables advertising to be embedded into content contextually, and you'll hear more about that, but it's really cool technology. And I think it has implications outside of advertising, but we'll talk about that. And last but not least, we have Mark Harrison. He's on my far left. Mark is the managing director of the Digital Production Partnership, which we like to call DPP because it's easier to say. Mark has worked as a historian. He's also an award-winning film director. He's worked at the BBC across a number of jobs over, 15 years, including head of multi-platform production. He was a series producer. He was head of BBC Arts, director of transformation design and engineering. He's now the managing director of DPP, which he co-founded, I think it's about 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
4 years ago,
Yeah.
right. And DPP is an interesting group. It's a business change network, has how many, 300, 400 members?
400, yeah.
400 members. And they provide insight, you provide, I don't know, technology change leadership, market opportunities, those kind of things. So he's kind of got a big picture view, which is why we're going to let him do the first presentation. So without further ado, Mark Harrison.
Thanks, Kate. Oh, shucks. Thank you. Cast your minds back to the dim, distant past of mid-January 2017. Do you remember? Trump was not yet sworn in as president. The world was a nicer place. And I was just back from the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, CES, which, as many of you will know, is not only the biggest trade show in the world, but also the place where we get to see the latest trends unfold in consumer electronics. And something rather startling had happened at CES in 2017. So when I came back, I recorded this little video about it. What was the most important trend at this year's Consumer Electronics Show?
Well, Mark, this year CES was all about me.
Well, that's nice for you, Alexa, but does it matter for media?
I'm sorry, Mark, I can't find an answer to the question I heard.
Well, happily, the humans who wrote the DPP report on CES can. You see, this year's CES was all about voice assistants, and particularly Amazon Alexa. Does that mean that we'll soon be searching for our TV programs this way? Well, probably not. Because to be honest, the area of the show with the least about voice control was actually TV. Now, the thing that's really important about devices like Amazon Alexa becoming so popular is that consumers who used to have really close relationships with broadcasters are gradually being taught to have close relationships with the internet giants like Apple and Google and Facebook and Amazon. And what do you think about that, Alexa?
Looks like we'll be spending a lot more time together, Mark.
Pete's got the Amazon lawyers on speed dial. My phone will be ringing shortly, so sorry about that.
You didn't show that video in the prep session.
I'll come back to what I said about voice and media in a second, but let's just dwell on what I said almost 2 years ago about the changing relationships. Clicker, come on. Let's try that. Okay. That works. So
Good.
the thing is that the really big tech companies are not merely the world's biggest tech companies. They are now the 5 biggest companies in the world, period. And what's interesting is that actually they weren't until 2017. It's actually quite a recent thing. But those 5 are now the 5 biggest companies in the world. And that's important for 2 reasons. The first, the blindingly obvious, is that when you've got the 5 biggest companies in the world all being technology companies, you really do know that technology is driving the world. More significantly for us today, of course, they become the brands, the organizations, the operating systems with which we begin to have very intimate relationships. So I'm not a big Facebook user, but the other 4, I have those 4 companies in my life every single day. And you know what? It's great. It's great. They're all really useful to me and important to me in different ways, and I wouldn't want them taken out for a moment. Oh, we're still having trouble with this, I think. Let's do that again and that. Okay, so let's just step aside to, if you like, a snapshot of what you get at CES.
big thing at CES every year now is the smart home. And, you know, this is a bit of a snapshot of the kinds of companies you'll see displaying around the smart home. And amongst these, you'll see some, you know, pretty big names, Bosch and Bose, you'll see Sonos. They're really significant brands in their own right, and they've all got their stands, and they're all exhibiting their stuff. But actually, if you look at who they're integrating with when it comes to voice, which is now seen as the operational interface for the smart home, well, it's Amazon. Increasingly also it's Google Home. And they were the kind of Alexa equivalent for CES 2018. They stepped up and made a huge noise as well. And if you saw the latest of these stats, you'd see Apple begin to creep onto this chart as well. But Amazon's still the dominant player. But if we're talking about voice, we might think, because of some of the products we've got in our lives, we're talking about those other companies, but actually we're talking about the giants, because it's their voice technology being integrated into those devices. And supposedly driving the smart home. But then if you actually look at what people are doing with smart speakers, this is just a UK picture, but I think you'll find something very common elsewhere, and I'm sure Pete will tell us whether or not this is true. What people are actually doing is they're beginning to use those devices for entertainment. Because, I mean, anybody here used a voice assistant, whether it's Siri or whether it's Alexa or Google Home, to search for music? I mean, it's brilliant, isn't it? You just name any track, and it just plays. So you cannot overstate the greater importance in our lives of media than, frankly, asking Alexa to turn on a light switch. We will use this technology for our media consumption just as soon as we can. And there's only one place, to my mind, that this has to go next. It has to go to video. And sure enough, they're a little bit late in the day, but it did come back. Oh, golly, now this clicker's doing crazy things. Okay. So this, because other voice assistants are available, apart from Alexa, this actually is a picture of a Google integration into a display at CES. And as Kate mentioned already, you know, we are starting to see voice being integrated into all sorts of display and TV interfaces. And if anybody's done it, tried searching for content that way, it's a great experience. It answers a real consumer problem, which is in this gigantic sea of video content, how the heck do you find the stuff you want to watch? And we're no longer prepared to do all that searching. Now, two very, very important things about this. The first is, and we've been saying this in the DPP for a couple of years now, voice search will prove to be the single most important and disruptive thing to happen in video in a decade or more. The reason? Because consumers will want to search for content that way, and we will want a Spotify or an Apple Music of video. We will want to be able to name any piece and for it just to play. The question is, how long will it take to get there? And to what extent will the existing structures and rights systems inhibit what actually will be a kind of natural consumer demand? The second, now that's good. In my book, that's good. As a consumer, that's what I want. The thing that's a bit more sobering is, in that interim, we might be limited to the things we've subscribed to when we ask for particular programs. But think instead about what will happen if you just say, Alexa, play me some news. Alexa, play me some great comedy. Which news? Mm-hmm. Which comedy? Because what we're doing is we are reinventing the electronic program guide, only it's out of our sight. And the question is, will it be the companies who shout the loudest, that's to say, who've paid the most money and done the best deal, who float to the top of that voice EPG? And how will we still be able to get to, if you like, the more niche content that could easily get lost? Thank you.
Very good.
Don't use that clicker.
So before we get to the next presentation, that was very stimulating. Let me just go to Pete immediately and say, what you just heard Mark say was we're moving towards a Spotify of video, right? In other words, that you can see that voice search is being used by Alexa and by these other ones, Google Home, to do music, to coordinate your calendars, to get information. But how fast do you think we're moving towards a Spotify video? In other words, how fast do you think it's going to happen with video search?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, the usage is very similar, not just in the UK, but in other places
Okay.
as well. So just to come back on that. But yeah, I think music is a great example for us to look at, but I think video is coming very quickly. There's a couple things that have happened just recently that's going to drive that. But I would say,
Like what?
well, one thing we've now most voice assistants, I'll say, not just Alexa or Google Assistant, are incorporating voice into screen-based devices.
Okay.
So that was announced at CES last year. They're now rolling out. We have the Echo Show. We have developer tools that we've given to developers to start putting Echo Show into their own devices like tablets and stuff. So you'll start to see that. And in fact, TVs. And so what that will mean is now you're going to start to figure out how to do audio and video through voice, right? And so we're spending a lot of time on that. But if you look at what happened with music, because it was streaming and because it was so available, the usage just skyrocketed, right? So it's not necessarily market share moving from one to the next. It's more about the whole categories going up. People are listening much more to music throughout their homes now. When they're on the go, when they're in their car, because it's just easier to do.
Yeah.
So another question I want to get to is, where does this put national broadcasters and their share of voice? And, Mark again brought up another good point about, who's news and who's comedy. So again, just one quick question to you, and then you guys can come in. Who does float to the top of the new voice EPG? Is it all going to be based on commercial deals? In other words, you're going to hold out your hand as Amazon Alexa and say, hey, BBC, if you want to be at the top of the news feed, you got to pay us a certain amount of money, or how's that going to happen?
I don't know how it'll happen across the whole industry, but for Amazon, we're very focused on providing customers the choice and sort of the genuine answer that they're looking for based on feedback that other customers have given us.
Okay.
So that's sort of our algorithm.
So it's gonna be the algorithm.
That is sort of the review process. That's how you see Amazon.com right now. That you'll see that, and the other thing is we've created sort of an application mechanism within Alexa, which we call them skills, but it's a way for basically for Spotify, for instance, to create their own skill, and have their own unique experiences. So what you can do is say, Alexa, play, some musician on Spotify, and then you'll go to Spotify and you'll play directly to Spotify.
Yeah, but what if you
so
don't know? What if you don't
we're
say
allowing
Spotify?
branded
Yeah,
experiences.
sure. So if you say BBC, you'll go to BBC.
Yeah.
If you say Develt, you'll go to Develt. But what if you don't? What if you just say news, like Mark said?
It depends on, again, what you have signed up for.
Right.
So what subscriptions you have. So the default is Amazon Music, because we can make sure that you have some baseline of music. But if you also have Spotify or you have Pandora, you can set those as your preferences.
So Mark,
Right,
what
yeah.
is this worrying to you? Yeah.
No.
No.
No. Well.
I mean, what happens to the national broadcaster voice? They've been in control of their own EPG. They've been in control of prominence. on
Right.
Menus. Now suddenly it's something different. It's based on an algorithm.
Right.
It's based on what I've looked at before, according to Pete.
Right, and they have, but they have just because they have. And there's nothing kind of inherent or God-given that says that they should. From a consumer point of view, all you really care about is that you get to see the best stuff and the stuff that you like most. So this is painful for a lot of established providers who have been used to having a share of the territory. But frankly, the technology doesn't care that you're historic. I don't. To my point about where our relationships now say, I'm not sure the consumers actually care that much.
Okay.
who the provider is in the background. What they want to know is, are they getting great stuff? And so then the conversation actually just becomes one about how that works. It was almost like a user interface conversation, and to a certain extent a commercial conversation about, the extent to which subscription models kind of limit us and where that will all go. But actually, the conversation about whether certain people who were well-placed are now less well-placed is kind of a special pleading conversation.
So Phil, when you look at this, what do you think consumers want? I mean, do they want technology that's going to
Yeah, that's my
give...
I don't have this wide industry background of my partners here, but as a consumer, I think Pete kind of partially answered it when saying that it sounds like Spotify and Amazon have some kind of agreement. Is that right? Because we're at home, we have Amazon, we have Netflix, we have Now TV. And what's really annoying for us is having to go to each one separately to search. And I don't know whether, again, I don't have the knowledge on this, but is there any kind of industry trend to try and unify, have a single API for this? I mean, it would break your business model. I know that currently, but I don't know whether there is any effort to do that.
I mean, consumers didn't care about the whole music industry business model being smashed to pieces, did they?
No. In fact, I remember when Sony Music launched and they sort of said, we'll just have the Sony catalog. And you were like, okay, well, then you're going to have the Warner catalog and you're going to have the EMI catalog. It just didn't work. So you really have to have a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's called universal search, and I think we're in that sort of journey of how do you allow music companies or video companies, content companies to still have sort of a branded experience and have unique differentiation in a world of being able to search across catalogs, right? Which is what the consumers really want. But in the same time, you want innovation coming out of these companies that are creating content, right? So you want to give them tools and the capability to appear different and have a different relationship with those consumers. Okay. So I think that finding that balance is going to be what's important over the next 5 to 10 years. Okay.
So Phil, why don't we do your presentation now? So you're going to talk a little bit about Myriad and the kind of cool stuff you're doing. Phil McLaughlin.
Thank you, Kate. So, what is Myriad? So, Myriad's been around for 12 years now, and I've been the chief scientist all that time. And I think we'll probably just go straight to the video because that will explain what our company's about.
Find your inner clown.
Well, I found that he was very, very sad.
Special Agent Graham. Never Freddy Lapps.
So we do good graphics, if nothing else. So, what are we? So Myriad, we're a unique technology company that we embed brands into premium content without interrupting the story. And this last phrase really is the key to what we do. no, that didn't complete. Aha. Nope,
One
too far. Here we go. So my history, just a bit about me. So I started out as an academic. So I was various universities, including UC Berkeley and Oxford, and ended up at University of Surrey. And while I was there, I met up with a student. I was on my way to kind of a middling academic career, probably would have been senior lecturer in 5 years, that kind of thing. And he persuaded me to just give it all up and start a startup in visual effects software. And it was not a garage startup. We did a kind of upgrade to a spare bedroom startup. So there's two of us in our spare bedroom. Built the company, and I built the company and built the product. The main product that we built is Mocha, which is still available. It's part of Creative Suite and available separately as well. And I left Imagineer in 2006 to join Myriad, which was a spin-off, and I've been there ever since. So I wasn't going to say this, but when my marketing team saw this, they said, "Phil, you've got to mention this." So yeah, so there's a Academy Award in 2013 for the work for Mocha, which was an area of planar tracking, which is a way to track areas of an image over different frames of a video.
Great.
Thank you. I should say that was with colleagues from the company. It wasn't by myself. Too far. Okay, you going to stop?
We are going to get through
video.
this, I know.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Aha.
There we go.
I hadn't noticed this. So what this is doing, how do we do this? How do we place brands in video? So our method for doing it involves obviously a lot of automation, because we get hundreds of episodes of shows ingested, and we have to find places to place the brands. And what we've done is use the data we've generated over the time of the company, and built a neural network which automatically finds places in video where you can place brands. So here the color coding is green is for signage, and red is for product. So you can see not all of the suggestions are really good, but enough of them are so that we can actually scan through a lot of video very quickly and find good places to place the brands. So now how do I go forward? Here we go. So the next one is another application for AI, as it's called now. For us, it's machine learning, neural networks. And here we're looking at finding locale. So we're finding where in the video, what kind of setting is the scene. So this is very important for our advertising, because imagine if you're in a restaurant, only certain types of brands are going to work. Food and drink would be number one, obviously. And so knowing this locale is really important, and we've, again, trained a neural network to try to recognize which locale we're in. And again, it doesn't get it right all the time, but again, the big thing is we can process a lot of content really quickly, and for instance, come up with a good estimate for take content and just evaluate how much inventory inventory in our sense is the opportunities for placing brand. It's our shop window is the places we could place our brands. So I'm going to play these both at the same time. So this is now getting on to stuff we're doing right now. One on the European project, and one with a partner in China, where we're looking at personalizing and targeting of brands. So here we have two brands. On the left is a brand aimed at females, on the right, a brand aimed at males. And we would essentially, can I replay it? I wanted to replay that.
You're trying to play the video.
Ah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, okay. And so essentially, as a viewer, viewing the content, we can work out what kind of person is watching it, and this, depending on the scenario, there could be different things. If it's a subscriber model, then we'd have the subscriber information, and we'd know what kind of person is watching the video, and we could decide which brand to stream to that person. So essentially, this is the start of, to us, of personalizing video to get so different versions of video can go to different people. And last slide. The things that we're looking at in terms of how we're affecting the industry. Now, first of all, we think we give a better viewer experience because our branding is all about placing in the content. It's not interstitial ads, and so you don't have to interrupt the content as you're viewing. So we think, of course, it gives less disruptive experience. And number two, personalization. So this is where it gets controversial, and hopefully there'll be some comment on this. But currently we're talking about personalization of ads, but it could be starting from the least controversial to the most. It could be there's a car in the show which is placed digitally, and you could have different cars. It could be the brand, or it could be just the color of the car is different. Next going up would be, it could be a character. I mean, at the moment there's trends towards having digital characters in shows. So imagine if you have a digital character in a show, they could have a different look for different people viewing the content. And even for real characters, that could be possible with clever enough video processing. And then the last one, which is probably the most controversial, the one's going to get most pushback, and it's just I'm just throwing it out. You could have a personalized storyline. So one person could get the sad ending, another person could get the happy ending. Have we like that? I doubt it, but who knows? And then the last point is that we could have more interaction with the content. And so you could have, for instance, hotspots, which could be ads, or it could be other markers in the video which are clickable and could lead to some action, maybe on a second screen. So that's another way you could use this idea. One last thing is just hot off the presses for us is we have this idea that ads are, nobody likes ads, yeah? Everybody thinks that, even if it's not actually true, but we have evidence it's not true now. We just did a study in the US on a show called La Pelotto. Oh, sorry, it's too late to add the slide. We only just found out this yesterday. La Pelotto is a Spanish language crime drama in the US through Univision. And we did a campaign for them. I can't say the brand. It's a telecoms brand. I can't say exactly what it is because we haven't got the clearance yet. But we did a viewer research into that and asked 500 people looking at our treatment, do you actually like the version of the content with this ad? And 88% people said they did. So that's quite a good evidence that, in fact, our ads are, maybe even people like them.
That's a good note to end on. Thank you very much, Phil. That's great. Thank you. So just, I mean, obviously there's lots of questions to ask. One question I had is, do you see uplift? In other words, when you do this kind of inserted advertising with different products, do the products like it? Do they actually get more sales? Do they actually see, I mean, is that, or do you not have that kind of information?
I have some of that information. As I say, I told Kate before, I'm very much a techie.
You're more of a techie, right?
But certainly I've seen there's a few cases. So there was a campaign we ran in Italy where it was by Lancia, and they integrated it was a second screen interaction between a TV show and a mobile app. And it drove them to use the mobile app and they got some marketing information about a special offer for cars. And they said they sold, I think the number was 17 extra cars, I think, because of this.
Right.
which is, you know, it's quite for a small test. It was a very good result.
I mean, if you think about this as, you know, as another form of product placement, it's just a very technically proficient way of doing it. You know, in Love Island in the UK, which has been a huge hit, there's a company called Superdrug, who are one of the product placement companies, and they saw a 14% increase in footfall as a result of their product placement. I mean, that is, for a big company, that is
huge.
Enormous.
Yeah. Just quickly before we go to Pete, what do you think about what Phil was saying at the end, you two? In other words, you know, actually changing out characters and personalized storylines. I mean, it sounds like the tech is there. There may be more pushback from the industry, but I mean, is that something that makes sense?
Well, I think in versioning for different cultures, different languages, something actually I'll be talking about later, huge, absolutely huge, because versioning is itself a gigantic industry. The notion that we will use it to change storylines, I think, is absolute nonsense, because I don't believe that consumers actually want to have the choice of storylines. I think we love the fact that we don't know what's going to happen. That's what makes for a great story.
You kind of want to go with the author, right, Pete?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to have the thing changed.
Yeah, I would add to that. I mean, the technology is amazing. It's obviously very cool to see. I think the consumer experience, though, is a little concerning. You wouldn't want to overstep and make it feel manipulative or like you're being fed something. So finding that balance, I think, will be really interesting. And obviously, I don't see exactly how it translates yet to voice.
Yeah.
So we'll have to think about that.
Yeah. So why don't we go on to Pete's presentation now? So you're going to talk a little bit about what Amazon's up to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Okay.
So, Pete Thompson.
All right. Hey, everybody. Okay. Let's see if I can get the clicker right. All right. So this is a great intimate setting, so hopefully you guys are thinking about questions too, so we can get to that at the end. Be great to hear. I always like to hear what people think about Alexa and Echo and all this, because it is sort of a new industry. But what I wanted to do was share a little bit about sort of the origin of how we came up with Alexa, and then some interesting sort of user behavior that we're seeing and how it's evolving. I think that might be interesting for how we think about voice and voice assistants when it comes to content and entertainment. So first, before that though, just like everybody else, let me just roll a quick video to sort of get in. It's sort of a fun, quick video to show you about Alexa and how people are using it.
Alexa, roll video.
Alexa, ask Geneva to preheat the top oven to 350 for chicken.
Alexa, play me music.
You can control the TV with no hands.
Yeah?
Alexa, pause.
Alexa, add stain remover to the shopping list.
Stain remover added to your shopping list.
Alexa, dim dining room lights to 50%.
Okay.
Romantic.
Alexa, ask Domino's to place my easy order.
Ordering Domino's.
A lot of times we found that people are doing things that really require both hands. What Echo has done is allowed for this hands-free interaction.
Alexa, show me the front door.
Mix me a Negroni. Turn on coffee maker.
Ask the Mariners to show the home plate camera.
Alexa, set reminder to watch The Late Show with Stephen Colbert every weekday at 11:35 p.m. on CBS. Forever.
Hey, welcome back to Alexa and Me. This is a show I host with a tiny robot.
Alexa is my girl. We're having a great time.
I hope you feel better soon.
Alexa, turn on the holiday spirit.
Okay.
Alexa, fist bump.
Bump, yo. High fives.
Alexa, are you happy?
I'm happy when I'm helping you.
God, that's so cool.
All right, slightly different from the other videos. So it obviously brings up a lot of emotions with people. But so we started this about 4 years ago. Alexa actually turned 4 last week. We actually do, obviously we're Amazon, we do a bunch of promotions on her birthday with the products. But it's been an interesting journey. But in terms of how we thought about the beginning, hold on, let me get this going here. Uh-oh, I'm gonna fail too.
The laptop.
Use the laptop, just click. Does that work? Maybe the forward button?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, you know what, they're just pictures,
Peter,
so it doesn't matter. It's okay. So let me just go through it. So about, where did this come from? Why did Amazon create a voice assistant called Alexa? So we saw a bunch of emerging trends coming to play that we knew we could take advantage of and create something incredible. And to be able to, have this computer in the cloud that basically anyone could connect to anywhere in the world and be able to control things around you. The inspiration actually came from Star Trek, so the symbiotic relationship of kind of looking into the future and then working backwards to create the technology. Amazon, we have a very unique culture where every project starts with writing the press release and then answering all these sort of frequently asked questions that you might get from it. Thank you. So we did that in this case, and it really came out of, let's see if I can get it. Yep, there you go. Hopefully you guys are familiar with the old Star Trek, but in Star Trek, anybody can walk around the ship wherever they are, and they can talk to the computer. It knows who they are. It's very natural. They don't have to do anything special, and they can control anything around the ship. Based on whatever authentication that they have, of course. But that's really where we came from and where we started, and obviously it's a journey. But really we wanted to make this sort of, again, ability to anybody to be able to control their environment through this computer in the cloud and entertain you, answer questions that you might have, and control sort of your smart home or whatever the work environment that you're in. Make sure this is... So how did we start? Can you guys hear me? We started with just one simple device, the Amazon Echo. And really it was designed, we had to build the device because we didn't want to just put voice in a product as sort of an add-on feature. We wanted to design it from the ground up based on making it easy to hear you, being able to drown out all the other noise when you say Alexa to it, having the right kind of speaker technology, and then obviously being cheap enough so that you can put it into your environment and grow with it. So we did that. We focused on some very small number of use cases to begin with, which I think is, again, the right way to create a new category. Music was one of the biggest things that obviously we wanted to do, just make it easy to play music. And it was all about just very quickly getting to the music that you want to listen to, and then just answering quick questions. And we really kept the scope to that and got out there, and people loved it. And so again, because the computer is all the processing stuff is in the cloud, we knew we can evolve it, we knew we could grow, and Alexa could learn and get better and better over time. So we started with the single device. What we found is people wanted to engage more with it, so we actually moved to screen-based devices with the Echo Show and started to learn about how do you have a visual representation as well as just the audio, and what you can do with that, and obviously that's where video becomes really interesting. And then what we did was basically give a developer toolkit out to everybody else and allow them to put Alexa into their products. And again, just like the Star Trek inspiration, we know we can't have enough Echoes out there to have it wherever you are, so it needs to be in everything that you're doing, including light switches, everything, anything that is very quick and just convenient for you in your car, all kinds of devices in your work, and then you've got to be able to figure out how to handle the environment that you're in and kind of what it can and can't do. So we started with all that, and it's been great. And we started with sort of this idea of utility and trying to drive use cases in. What we found, though, is that people really created an emotional connection with Alexa. And we weren't really expecting this at all. And I think this is interesting for how we think about video and Alexa over the future. But people they form a bond with Alexa because it's so natural. And because she learns more about you as it's going, people ask her for marriage proposals. We've had over, I think, multiple millions of marriage proposals for Alexa. People ask her to tell her a joke. We've had, this year alone, 100 million jokes asked. for Alexa. We now actually launched this week. Jimmy Fallon is now answering the jokes, if you know Jimmy Fallon. But so we'll see how that goes. But again, because we can test these things, we try out different things. But that emotional attachment is just fascinating. And figuring out sort of not overstepping that, because there's this ability that people are sort of making it part of their family, making it part of the connection. We have to be very careful about how we continue with sort of the privacy and the trust and the fact that we are sort of a responsible person within the family. So it gets a little bit on the edge, and we need a new version of Star Trek to figure out kind of how to take it past that. But that's kind of where we're going at this point. There's over 100,000 five-star reviews on Alexa on Amazon.com, and over half of them mention the word love. And I think we find that very interesting. We talk to a lot of consumers. There's this definite emotional appeal, and it's been interesting for us to start to explore that and figure out kind of what consumers want when it comes to the voice assistant. We think of voice assistants as friends, and we think in the future there's probably you're not just gonna want one friend. You don't necessarily go to the same person for advice on whether you're going to go mountain climbing or if you're going to, have a question on math or something. So we think there's going to live, multiple voice assistants, and what we need to figure out is that interoperability. So as a consumer, how do you switch friends that you want to talk to? And so that's some of the stuff that we're really working on with Microsoft and other companies right now. So in terms of this show, and this conference, really, the next step is sort of, we're putting Alexa in TVs. So this is Vestel TV. It was announced just a couple months ago that they're coming out with Alexa built in. You'll see a lot more of this. And so the question's going to be then, the interface, how is that going to work with voice where you just sit on a couch, you don't even have to use a remote control. It's what we call far field, meaning you just can say the wake word, whatever it is. And then you can ask it to search, you can ask it for information. So it has all the general purpose ability of Alexa, but it also has the domain ability of controlling your TV. And so where that goes gets really interesting. A lot of good things that we're exploring and working with partners on. And then also, because voice is now going to be a way to control your TV, you guys should be thinking also about what do you do with the metadata, what do you do at pre-production time to think about the fact that people are going to want to find your content and explore it and get closer to it using voice. And how do you make that easier? And so that's some of the stuff that we're working on. That's probably the next kind of generation of interesting innovation that will come out over the next couple of years. So with that, I'll leave it for the questions, but thank you very much.
That sounds great. Thank you. Thank you, Pete. So, because we're running out of time, I want to open up to you. Does anyone have a burning question right now? There's one there. Are there mics that are coming down, or are we just talking loudly? Sorry. Yes? Why don't you talk loudly and I'll repeat, and then we can get some mics organized. Is there another question? Put your hand up. Yeah, go ahead.
Pretty cool stuff. Right?
Pretty cool, yep.
But there's always a negative side.
Yep.
Right?
Here he comes. Reach behind you. Other way. Yeah, there you go.
Big negative side is going to be transparency.
Mm-hmm.
People want to know, why am I getting this piece of content recommended to me?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I'm discovering content, or I'm discovering other kinds of opportunities. Why am I getting this as opposed to something else? And then the question for the ads, same kind of a question. Why am I seeing this ad as opposed to something else? And Europe is a little bit ahead of the United States in this game. We've got the basic data protection laws. At the next stage of that, which is going to be a lot deeper, is going to be explaining to everybody, to put them back, to give the consumers back to the control of why is this happening to me? Mm-hmm. And do I want it to happen to me? So, little question there.
Okay, so why do I get these ads, or why do I get this content?
Yeah, let me start maybe, and then you guys can jump in. Voice is really hard. I mean, I'd say the hardest thing that we're struggling with is discovery in general. We have all this content behind the Echo and behind Alexa, and we have no way to kind of programmatically or curate it or bubble it up for people so that they see it and they learn about it, as opposed to like a touch screen or other ways that people have learned in the past about it. So
we can
that's
kind of scroll through.
Yeah. So that's actually one of our biggest challenges is how to do it. I don't think we're even at the stage yet. We have to solve that. Then there will be a stage at some point where we think about, okay, is there some sponsored content? Is there advertising? But we're not even close to kind of thinking through that. It's not our business model, first of all, at Amazon, so it's easier for us not to have to worry about that. But I think we have to get the consumer experience correct first and figure out how to help people discover content. I think some of the screen-based devices is going to help that in connection with voice. And I think it'll just take time for people to get comfortable and learn how to ask for things and how to learn through the voice when you don't have that visual feedback.
I would just
but that's
caution
hard.
you, don't make the mistake that Facebook has made and Google's made, where you say, we're just the platform, nothing to do with us, mate. Because these questions that he's asking are about, privacy and why am I getting this you know what I mean? And that draws that line. Are you a publisher or are you a platform?
Yeah.
And we now realize that really platforms also are publishers. So
Yeah, and I think privacy and trust is going to, again, in a new thing like this, where it's very unknown and people have a lot of concerns about it.
Yeah.
And then every now and then there's a weird corner case that happens, which we all have seen and heard.
that's right. Alexa suddenly sends out something to a relative you didn't mean her to send it out to.
Right,
Yes.
right, exactly. And we have to be very diligent on figuring out how to make sure that those don't happen and we maintain that trust and that relationship with the consumer. So to add on advertising or to add on sponsorships right now doesn't seem like the right thing to do.
Okay.
But we've got it. But just in general, we have to make sure that we're being very, very transparent, and that's something that we're doing. If we don't do that, I don't think voice in general will end up being a successful category.
Okay, so
we have
Phil,
to get that right.
why are certain people getting certain ads? Are you doing anything about that, or?
Well, in a sense, we have an advantage. A kind of a trite answer, I know, but we're not vertically integrated the way Amazon are. All we do is place ads in video. It is our partners who provide the data to decide who sees what ad. And there are so many different scenarios. So it could be a programmatic. It could be just different companies bidding for the ad. We might use some personal information. It might not. Or it could be a subscriber model where the subscriber information is what's used to decide who gets what ad. So I know it's very emotive, this area, and there has to be, and there's another area which you could mention, which is for our technology, people who watch the ads might not realize they're watching ads, which is another thing people have mentioned about our company. So with all these things, it's more, to me, I don't have I always say this, I don't have a wide industry view, but it has to be some trade-off, and it might be different in different markets. So in Europe, it's going to be much more consumer protection than, for instance, in China, where we do a lot of business. So I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry, but
all right.
that's the best I can do.
Is there any other burning question? Otherwise, we need to wind up because we've got a little coffee break we've got to go to. Please come and talk to these people afterwards because this session was really full of great ideas and interesting information. And will you please join me in thanking our panel on Alexa? How are you going to change the home experience? Thank you, guys.
Okay.